It's finally time for Thoughts on Shadows Upon Time by Christopher Ruocchio, the 2025 novel and book 7 of 7 in the Sun Eater series. Hadrian begins his novel with his daughter, Cassandra. Hadrian is being a bit philosophical, no surprise. Recently, Hadrian has died again and returned, though this time he has come back younger than his years, 600 of them. And of course, that all happened in the previous novel, Disquiet Gods. Hadrian is thinking on Annika. He's been there for a dozen years before going to see if Olerin has come alone to his aid. The demiurge is now Hadrian's. Karn Sagara is dead, and now he must do his ultimate act, destroy the Cielsen at the behest of the Quiet for their abominations and worshipping the Watchers. There are several references to classic works, medieval works, pulp, scripture, Beowulf, my love. Also, there is a flashback, particularly near the start, to help the reader catch up between Disquiet Gods and this. So that flashback, which keeps on getting told in several chunks, happens over a little bit of that first part of the book. So just beware. I'm not sure how everyone will like that. I think it works fine. Hadrian's voice is as compelling as ever. Interestingly, we get some other people's accounts in this flashback. It's really this recounting, I guess, of the Battle of Orgosos 40 years prior. I think some will find this a bit stilted again and bad for pacing, a weird change in narrative, but again, I personally think for the type of story, it works really well. Ruocchio is a talented writer and trying his hand at a new tool, and I think it works. Wolf would be proud of the authors of ancient epics, yes, them too. In this one, it feels more Christian than ever. Of course, the last book was, and even all the way back to the very first book, but some will probably be bothered by this. I think it works rather well. I'm admittedly a Christian, though. Some will not recognize the scripture, doctrine, dogma, if not familiar with it, though. So someone who recognizes some certain cameos as well. I like it. I don't know about people who won't recognize it, or maybe will only partially recognize it. I don't know, say how an atheist would feel reading this at all. I imagine most will just enjoy it. But anyways, the future here, though, is as weirdly ultra-conservative, full of cosplayers afraid of technology. And that last part actually seems poignant, considering where AI has come since the publication of the first novel, and how much humans just rely on technology these days. And appropriately, in this book, the first line is light, just like it is in the first chapter of Empire of Silence. That spoils the series, if you will. But does it really spoil the end? I mentioned this probably in every review. Ere the end here, did it feel spoiled all those many pages ago? I'll say no. I was thinking, give me that Fiat Lux. But anyways, I would say the story is poetic at times, more so than the rest of the series. Like everything has combined for the crescendo. He uses the word Smeals, the mad lad, actually several times, way more than probably any modern text. I don't even know if it was used that much in text 1,000 years ago. But anyways, it definitely, though, as kind of mentioned, it doubles down in the direction of Disquiet Gods. So heads up. If you didn't enjoy Disquiet Gods, there's a good chance you might not enjoy this one. But that was more than fine by me. I think as far as characters are concerned, William proves to be amazing, as ever. It's not an easy job making him not seem the evil emperor or the overly benevolent one. He's really well done. I really like his character. And of new characters, Rothhaus is probably my favorite, though not there for very long. Edward, Lorien have some interesting developments. Orphan is a favorite character as well, relatively new. And Alexander. Oh, Alexander. We don't have all happy endings. The book definitely did leave me feeling melancholy at times. And while it is a victory of sorts, you also know where it's going, right? Like we know in a sense where it ends. And it had me worried about some of the characters. We don't really know what their fate is at the beginning of Empire of Silence, and some of those characters we don't even know they exist in Empire of Silence. It left me worried. You'll have to read to see how those characters fare. Another thing that comes up, I think, and that I really feel like needs to be pointed out here actually, is the redeemability of the Cielsen. Their horrors are not diminished. We are reminded of them. But in agreement with his faith, I'd say, like Tolkien with orcs. Sure, they're mostly monsters, but to call them unredeemable would reek of predestination. In fact, here is Tolkien's 153rd letter, an excerpt of it at least, but it's Tolkien talking on orcs. But if they fell, as the Diabolus Morgoth did, and started making things for himself to be their lord, these would then be, even if Morgoth broke the supreme ban against making other rational creatures like elves or men, they would at least be real physical realities in the physical world. However evil they might prove, even mocking the children of God, they would be Morgoth's greatest sins, abuses of his highest privilege, and would be creatures begotten of sin and naturally bad. I nearly wrote, irredeemably bad, but that would be going too far, because by accepting or tolerating their making necessary to their actual existence, even orcs would become part of the world, which is God's and ultimately good. And then I'll end with Tolkien's quote. Overall, the book is insanely long, very much so. In fact, it is almost 100,000 words longer than Demon in White, which is the second longest book in the series. And that being said, it is actually rather lean. Like many final volumes in epic series, there's just so much that needs to be done to get the conclusion. But while a lot of those still feel like they could have stuff cut easily, I don't really think this suffers from bloat. Or if it does, at least not much of it at all. But it is still very long. It is still a big read. But I'm actually impressed with how much he's able to fit in and all the stuff that is new and exciting. It doesn't feel bloated, but it is still long. We have a lot more story here. Again, the additions, the twist to enjoy before we get to the end that we already know somewhat about. And again, I talked about this already a little bit, but to be honest, it doesn't really feel spoiled. Because you can already guess about as much as the end of any series as Hadrian spoiled the start of Empire's Silence with any series, right? You can already guess, unless the author is trying to be deconstructive and subversive and they just kill everyone off in the end and they don't win or something like that, you can pretty much guess that the heroes are probably going to live, most of them at least, and that they're going to win, right? So I'm not really sure anything was really spoiled. In fact, very little of it seems very spoiled at the beginning of Empire Silence. You expect victory, yes. Maybe not the whole cost. You're not going to know the whole cost. But having victory spoiled, but not the path and cost, I don't know. That nothing feels spoiled there. That's pretty clever, and I think it works rather well. Finally here in that final volume. So, and yes, I mean, fear not. It sticks to the landing. Considering how much my reading tastes have changed since I started this series years ago, I still love it, and I can't say the same for really any other popular series I similarly began around that time. And while this is likely the end of the story we get, it's not really the end, is it? And in fact, there's certain key parts that you're going to get when you read this book that are pretty exciting, conclusive enough, but we don't get the story, right, of that stuff that comes after, and there definitely feels like there's more story. But in a way, it is finished. And viewer, we are back at the beginning. My first review even was for Empire's Silence. Does it end here for the Lyceum? Well, I will go on alone.